Hello everyone, it's Cheryl Millett here. And today we're going to talk about iridology and what it is and the various understandings you can have about this science. So without further ado, I'm Cheryl Millett and I am a holistic nutritionist and a healthcare practitioner, but also a certified iridologist, a certified clinical iridologist. And I'm happy to take more questions about me if it need be, but the idea here is after I finished my degree in nutrition, I wanted to have a tool that would allow me to actually go beyond the symptoms spoken by the client or the diagnosis or anything like that, be able to look at the person's eye and determine what's going on in the body. And as you will learn, this tool can be very, very helpful because of the few reasons we're going to go over. So without further ado, I'm going to go through the presentation. At this point, you're seeing the front page, Iridology, Your Eyes Tell Stories. So welcome. It is my pleasure to introduce iridology to more and more people. And let's carry on. So when we're looking at iridology, we're seeing from the first page here, I'm just going to go through the agenda for today. From the first page, you saw that there was different colors of eyes. As you can see in this one I brought in, this is a true brown, which is in the very top one. This is on the right-hand side. The mixed iris is, as it says mixed, it's between a true brown and a blue iris. The bottom one is a blue iris, and this one here, you can see the blue and the mixed, both you can see the fibers. We're going to go through more and more details, but what are we going to cover in this presentation today? We're going to go a little bit of introductory history into iridology and what it can and cannot reveal, causes and symptoms, a map of the eye, iris colors, toxins and inflammation, one of my favorite part of the presentations, key markings and signs, and then any questions. But what I'm going to do, for the people that are on here this evening, and this is being recorded, is ask people to put the questions into the chat, and if anything comes up where it's words I can talk about, I will. Otherwise, I'll leave the questions to the end and may open it up after the recording to talk in more detail about the answers to the questions. So let's carry on. Let's introduce iridology. Now, the idea is in ancient cultures, the eye was considered the gateway to the soul. And to the physician today, the eye serves as the window through which the state of health can be readily observed. So this is Patrick Trevor Roper. He was an eye surgeon and a writer, teacher, leader. You can research him up yourself. He has a wonderful history and story to be told. So let's carry on here. Now, the word iris is Greek, and it means rainbow or halo. As we can see with halo, this is the colored part of the eye that we're looking at, and the fibers go around the pupil, hence halo. So every fiber and the color, pattern, and defect in the iris, or I'll say markings, is believed to have a reflex correlation with the disease manifestation or organ system malfunction. Now, when we say reflex, think of the nerves and the nervous system. Now, the left eye is believed to correspond with the left side of the body, and the right eye with the right side of the body. And that's because the nerve fibers cross again, because we know right side of the body, left side brain, but the nerves, they cross over, and that's why they believe it's left and left. So iridology, it is a quick and accurate non-invasive, safe, painless system of health analysis or diagnostic tool. Holistic in nature. When we say quick, it's a matter of one click of the camera, and or we have very high tools that can actually look at the eye and see what's going on. And so, but it's in seconds you can see what's going on in the eye, and you'll see just from the markings that we're going to go through how that works. It involves the colored part of the eye to see inside the body, the iris. Now, the iris is recording information about also the constitutional strengths and weaknesses, that which you have been born with. Iris records information about your current health. So we got your at birth, and then what's going on in your life due to your lifestyle, that will also come up. Now, changes appear before the physical symptoms appear. This is the prevention. So if we're talking about disease and chronic inflammation, what's happening in the eye is it is showing, as we'll go through a little bit more in the future slides, it is showing things before the person is feeling the symptoms. And this is a very important thing, so very preventative. Now, a little bit of history. And this is really first and foremost going back and seeing what stone slabs, what art had depicted the eyes. And so 1000 BC, so 3000 years ago, the Chaldeans of Babylon, stone slabs found depicting the relationship of the iris to other parts of the body. And then we're thinking about 50 AD, biblical references, Matthew 6:22. And then in 1786, Christian Hartel's Gottenden. This is the eye and its signs. And then we get to 1826 to 1911 with Dr. Ignaz von Pasley. And he's from Hungary and wrote Discoveries in the Field of Natural Sciences and Medicine, Instructions in the Study of the Diagnosis from the Eye. Now I want to just actually dive in a little bit about his story. When he was a young boy, and it seemed like he was wrestling with a large bird, I believe it was an owl, and the leg broke. He noticed he was so close with the owl, so up close, that he actually saw a dark streak form at 6 o'clock, if we're looking at the eye. And when he became a doctor, he actually seen the same dark streak in a patient of his who had broken his leg. Then we have Pastor Falke around the same time, in Germany, but unknown to each other. His story is he actually his body was introduced to some poison. I'm going to say he was poisoned, but he had poisoned, and he noticed the color of his eyes changed. What he really noticed is when he got better, the color of his eyes returned. And from there, he did his own ongoing discovery of what the iris was telling about the health. So independent of each other, these two gentlemen were the earlier founders of the iridology. Now, further to that, there's been a number of people, but worth noting is Dr. Bernard Jensen out of California. He was a chiropractor, but then became a nutritionist. He had a sanitarium. He's really much into cleansing and recognizing the correlation with toxicity in the bowels and so forth. But he also used iridology to help diagnose what's going on in his patients and then the changes. But he definitely married both the nutrition, both being a doctor, as well as being a doctor, and then with iridology. And he's written a lot of magazines. He did a lot of courses. He taught a lot of people iridology. And also another person, 1965 to 1992, Joseph Deck from Germany, as well as many others actually did further studies on iridology. There's actually, I've studied classical iridology, but there's actually other forms of teachings of iridology. It's not regulated, so you can easily fall into that where, you know, maybe you can tell how many children a person had. But in the classical iridology, we stay with the foundations of iridology that way. And then there's Adam Jackson, Iridology, A Guide to Iris Analysis. So writings they did, teachings they did, and further research as well. So let's go into what it cannot reveal. This is very, very important. Quite often we are very familiar with labels and names that are used. And what iridology doesn't reveal is that the medications and the drugs used. But it will surely show what the effects of the medication and drugs have on your body. It can't tell the sex, female or male. That's normal, that's natural. It can't identify the disease by name because, as I said, these names are made up, and it isn't the body going to say, hey, I can show you cancer. The body doesn't identify nor call things out that way. Determine the number of organs. Let's just say in the way in relation to kidney, you have 2 kidneys, but let's say normal for you is just 1 kidney. As long as the kidney is functioning normally, nothing is going to come up. It can't prove, and this is classical iridology, whether a woman is pregnant, either normal or other. And then it can't show whether gallstones or kidney stones are present. But the idea is that if you have ill effects or bothered, the body's system's bothered by things like this, it will show that there's inflammation. Now we're going to go in a little bit more detail with that as to what it can reveal. What can it reveal? What organ is in the greatest need of repair? It can also show prolapse transverse colon. If you have a prolapse transverse colon, you know exactly what I mean. If you do not, then you probably don't. But if you look at the picture, you're going to see here, this is the intestines. The blue is the small intestines, and the red is the large intestines. And you see across the top, that's going, you know, left to right of the body. That is the part that's the transverse colon. It's transversing across the body. And here what can happen is it can sag down. Now this is sagging a little bit, but if you can imagine that sagging way down, what it can easily do is put pressure on the bladder. But in the eye, we can see the shape of the colon, and this is what we can see. Now with the colon as well, spastic conditions and ballooned conditions can also be shown of the bowel. Other things that can be shown is poor assimilation of nutrients, lymphatic system congestion, nerve force and nerve depletion, and also a buildup of toxic material, which is really very important, as I will speak to the stages of disease a little bit later. What else it can reveal is the levels of internalized stress and tension, potential terrain for parasites and other infections. It can show the cardiovascular function and the system. How is it doing? An over-acidic body chemistry, when we're thinking of pH, acid and alkaline, and anemia. And when we think, I just want to go over a situation here and causes and symptoms, just so you have a bit of an idea of the way the medical system works today when they are looking at the symptoms. So when we look at the iris, it is reflecting what the causes are, not the symptoms. And when I say causes, it's going to show there's inflammation, there's going to show it's irritation, there's going to show that it's toxicity. The symptoms, be it headache, you may have some inflammation or irritation within the head area, maybe even impaired nerve flow, and that could be cause of the headache. But many things when it comes to headaches can have different causes. So many diseases here have similar symptoms, just like I was speaking to the headaches. Acne is another one. So many symptoms can have multiple different causes. Situation. So if we're thinking about a patient who has colitis or colonitis, as it used to be called, and experiencing pain and bleeding from the rectum, with allopathic medicine, and when the pain can be suppressed, the patient is considered well, but the eyes still show a buildup of acidity and actually inflammations. So we're getting to the root cause, and we're also looking to the eye to tell us how the body is repairing and feeling better. Here's a chart. The iridology chart here is on the right side. You can see it's kind of a map. There's circular rims around. If we look at the very outside, darkish blue, that is actually the skin. And it works its way up into different layers through the lymph and bone and blood and muscles. And until we get to the middle, which we're looking at the digestive system, the stomach, and then we got the pupil. But as well as those circles, you can see that it also fans out. And on the right side of the eye, you can look to the lightish blue. That's the lung and chest area. And the top, which we call 12 or noon, just like a clock, is affecting the head area. That's where the head area. And to make complete sense of the map here, if you look below at 6 o'clock, well, that will be the leg, the ankle, the foot. So not to go into too much detail, but the idea is your nervous system is communicating the health of your body from all the various parts of your body into your iris. And that would be no different than reflexology, where they're looking, practitioners looking at your feet and pressing on various areas. There's a map for your feet. It's similar in that nature. But you're going to see the markings are unique to the eye, and you can see it for yourself versus the foot. It's very, very interesting. And you can see I put the eye over the left one, and we're looking at, again, noon, 3, 6, and 9 is giving us a little bit of a benchmark to where we're looking. And this is what iridologists would be looking at, the map, overlaying over your eye, and see what it speaks to us. Now, just it's somewhat important, I think, and obviously maybe obvious questions when it comes to the colors of the eyes is, does it matter? Is there anything that comes from knowing the colors of the eyes? Now, when we think of constitution, they say that in my studies, blue-eyed type is lymphatic. That's what it would be geared to, having lymphatic issues. Upper respiratory tract, digestive tract, urogenital tract, lymphatic tissues, joints, kidneys, and adrenal glands. Imbalances. So now the mixed eye type is biliary. And this is focused more on the liver-related problems, the digestive tract, and allergies. And the brown eye type was hematogenic, which is to do with blood disorders, and imbalances of minerals, especially calcium, which is the most abundant mineral in our body, circulatory system, liver, spleen, bone, marrow, digestive system, and endocrine glands. In some ways, you can look as the mixed eye type is a blend of the blue-eyed and brown eye type. So you can, in some way, see how the mixed eye type may be open to both the blue-eyed and the brown-eyed type that way. So toxins and inflammation. You can see here this would be a true blue eye, and it could be all blue. But in this case, we see some orange in there, and what we're looking at is toxicity and their locations. That is in the digestive system. Makes a lot of sense there. And we're also looking at the level of inflammation. If you see the whiter parts of the eye, and I mean kind of like the streaky, that would show some inflammation. The nervous system, the tissues, the cell in that part of the body would be vibrating higher. They're inflamed. Biochemical deficiencies. And then layers. So when we think of layers, now biochemical deficiencies, I should step back to that. You see the brownish spot on the, I'm going to say that's like 2 o'clock. Let's look at it as a clock, 2 o'clock. And hopefully this is switched around for you. But that would be 2 o'clock. And there could be some chemicals within the body. It could be also something that's inherited. That's why it's important, if we're thinking timing with iridology, it would be optimum to actually have eye photos taken of the eyes before the age of 5, and we can see what inherited tendencies, strengths, and weaknesses that are for the child, as well as even any current, and from the preventives, let's see if there's anything actually occurring at that age. And then one could get their eyes taken every 5 years or 10 years, or any time there's symptoms that do appear. So layers, let's talk a little bit about layers. When we're talking the body, and the body is starting off with not feeling well, let's just say, and there's acute changes. So acute means it's new. You can think of an injury as being acute, and then it goes away. Now, if it doesn't go away, we get into subacute, a little bit deeper. And then if that doesn't go away, then it gets into chronic inflammation. And then there's degenerative next to that. And that will show in the vibration of the fibers, if they're light or if they're dark. Dark being closer to degenerative, and light, bright, and white being the injury just happened, or acute inflammation. This is the time where I want to actually go through something that's very close and dear to me. It is the reason I have written the book, All Guts, All Glory, 7 stages of disease. Stage 1 is enervation. You can think the body having less energy. I'm not going to go into great detail with it, but enervation, less energy. As you have less energy, detoxifying is that much more difficult, and you have buildup of toxics, toxic waste, toxic material, chemicals, and so forth, and that's stage 2. So we get into toxemia. Further to that, if the toxins are not removed, the toxins will cause irritation. That's stage 3. Now, before we get to inflammation, the causes of inflammation, irritation, injury, infection. So we get to inflammation. In this case, it's considered more of chronic here, but injury, infection will be more acute. And again, if the inflammation goes away, then it's more, in the initial stages, acute. So stage 4, inflammation, critical stage. Going from acute to chronic, which is what we don't want. The idea is for everybody to know that inflammation is a part of every disease, every condition. The way you can see that is itis, arthritis, esophagitis, hepatitis. This is inflammation in the liver, inflammation in the esophagus, inflammation in the joints, arthritis. So this is very key. Now, it doesn't mean that cancer and diabetes don't have inflammation. Doesn't mean that depression doesn't have inflammation. They've done some recent research and shown there's inflammation in the brain. So inflammation, again, is part of every condition and disease, and including infection and injuries. Now let's go through the last 3 here. Ulceration, as you can think of ulcers, wanting to get the toxins out of the body, splitting of the arteries. Stage 6 is induration. That's hardening and scarring, hardening of the arteries. See, the body here is actually in survival mode. When we have hardening and scarring, that is less vital energy and nutrients going to that part of the body. If you've ever had scar tissue, then you'll know that it's kind of numb, it kind of tingles, you don't feel it the same way. And this is where we get into the 7th stage as we further progress. This is where the oncologist will tell you you have cancer. This is where the body, the pH is acidic, but the body's a miracle. And I'm here to tell you that the body, when given the break, when given the opportunity to heal, will do so. But we do have to absolutely consider both mind, body, and spirit when it comes to that. And I mentioned here the book, All Guts, All Glory. The idea is really focusing on how the body works and the stages of disease, giving a deeper understanding for everybody in taking full responsibility for their health. So that should come to Amazon very soon, if not already, depending on when you're watching this presentation. Iridology, so key markings and signs. So now we're going to really roll and dive into the pictures here. We're going to look at constitution. We're going to look at central toxemia. We're going to look at stress rings, low stomach acid, stomach conditions, pupil size, lymphatic congestion, and sodium cholesterol ring, along with a few other things. So let's look at the constitution, inherited. Those roundish circles, openings, spreading of the fibers is called lacunae. And these actually show that in that part of the body, there is inherited weakness in that part of the body, maybe not as much vibration, and these are inherited. So the idea is some people have 1, 2, 3, perhaps, and in this case, there is many. I've never had one client that's had these many lacuna, but maybe half of this. This is where it takes me in just to show the difference that inheritance and lifestyle can make a huge difference. This is family. And you can see some of the huge differences here. The grandfather to the far, on my side, the left there, under iridology. And then you have the 2 daughters in the middle. And then you have the 3 eyes. So there's a father and mother at the top, and their daughter is the beautiful blue eye there, as you can see. So one has a mixed eye, and the father had a blue eye, and the child ended up getting the recessive gene and has a blue eye. So you can see the difference there. Now, had we taken photos of the father when the father was younger, we may see just how much the lifestyle has changed. This father is a smoker, and that might be why you see those toxic or chemical spots on the eye. Anyway, I just wanted to give you a little, just to kind of see how different, you get this mix of genetics from your parents, and you can get completely different eyes. It's not that you're, remember, you get the dominant, or maybe the healthy part, which would be the good thing. So let's carry on to one area that I think is important for everybody to understand is how the body is affected toxemia. We already touched on it in the stages of disease. So central toxemia here, in this case, central being all around the digestive system, not in just one part. And we have some, what we call spokes. You can see the darkish reddish, you can see the arrow pointing to it, that are coming from the digestive system. So in this case, the toxicity may be being absorbed into the body and affecting the various areas of the body. But you got to know, first and foremost, that the colon is got all the body. It is like the eye. It's a map of your body. The hands are a map of your body. The ear is a map of your body. So in like this, if the nervous system or the nervous part of the colon is being affected with pressure, let's say, of the toxicity that's there, then it may be showing up in here that way, affecting the other parts of the body. So this is a very simple picture, give you a good idea of what central toxemia is. Another thing that's apparent with the eyes is actually how the body is internalizing the stress a person is going through. I have had clients which, and usually what I will ask them is, well, where's your stress levels, 1 to 10, and they have their way of interpreting that. And I have had people say, oh, I'm so stressed, but the eyes do not speak to that. So somehow they don't hold it. They let it roll off their back in some way. Maybe we can look at it as being more drama, more talk, those kind of things. And I've had other people saying that, their stress is very low, but they'll come up with several of these rings, these stress rings. And what you can look at is this is a buckling of the fibers. And it goes all around in this case, but sometimes these rings can actually go just in certain parts of the eye. And these are a handful here, but they can become more, or they can be just one. So you can see some more here as well. In this case, in a mixed eye, the whitish color there where it's buckling there. And then we're going to get into the digestive system, because the digestive system is something that is very simple. And if people had the understanding that for just about that I have found, for all conditions, there is a dysfunctioning digestive system. This digestive system is very valuable from that standpoint. And this actually is been validated through Ayurvedic, through Chinese medicine. And I continue to speak to people around the world from various different medical looks or ancient medicine. And it seems that the digestive system is dysfunctioning every time. Low stomach acid, very important to know. Most people think they have high stomach acid, but you can see this kind of brownish, darkish ring right around the pupil where it's the arrow is, and that would indicate low stomach acid and not the high stomach acid. So this is just a couple of other halos here you can see. One is on the smaller photo, it is lighter or not as pronounced, and the other one you can see it. So in this case, you have low hydrochloric acid as well. And then around the pupil, you can see a brownish, a reddish brown, dark brown line. In some cases, it's thicker. On the smaller one, you can see it's thicker. This would speak to the integrity and the health of the stomach lining. And there are certain protocols to help with that. Now, the other thing is the nervous system. So going from the digestive system to the nervous system, both are centered around the pupil, and both are the first to actually be formed as an embryo. So your digestive system and your nervous system. And from there, everything else is formed. Now, the pupil size of it, everything to do with the nervous system, and we know that if there's more light or less light in a room, the pupil will adjust to let more light in. But besides that, what the pupil can tell us about the nervous system, as you can see, the very bottom one is very, very, very tight. So this person may very well, we really don't go into personality, but a type A personality. Very tight. And then I don't have one that is extremely large, the pupil, but if you could imagine any one of the other three pupils that much larger, that would be considered an exhausted nervous system. So we have the pupil size giving us an indication of the of that. If it's a normal pupil, it's normal pupil, but also the positioning of the pupil can also tell us things about the nervous system, but we're not going to go into that today. Lymphatic congestion. So as we go through sickness and we have colds and we have the immune system that needs to kick into action, this is a great way to see if a person has lymphatic congestion, because there's really simple protocols, things for people to do to work with that, besides proper hydration. But what you're looking at here is you're looking at, I'll call them cotton balls or puffs that look like they make a ring all around. The mixed eye down below may be a little bit more subtle, but you can see them there. And the blue eyes you can see much better. But this is showing that there's lymphatic congestion. And in order to have an optimum immune system, it's not the only part of the immune system, but it also takes out the toxicity from the body. So that's extremely important to understand about the lymphatic system. It's you have the blood bringing in the nutrients, you have the waste coming through that, and our own metabolic processes, our furnace, our production of energy. You get waste products there, and then that is to be taken out of the body through the lymphatic system, which then will go through liver, goes through bowels, goes through kidneys, comes out through the lungs, those kind of things. So this is the marking here, sodium cholesterol ring. We are talking about not so much as build-up cholesterol as being the bad guy, but we are talking about congestion in the cardiovascular system. And you can see this ring a little bit more yellow on one, and on the other one a little bit more white, and one a bit larger than the other. In some cases it might just hang over the top of the head, and we know stroke, that's congestion of the blood and the arteries and stuff in the head area. But this is just an indication of, and you might think of the sodium balance within the body as well. You often will see these in older people, much older people, but it can be inherited as well. And that's might be what you might remember. See older people. Now you'll be looking at everybody's, all the older people's eyes, and seeing this ring. So I want to thank everybody for coming on and learning and watching this here. And like anything, this is just an introductory to iridology. Your eyes tell stories. Ideally, with iridology, you can't say really much about your health as what iridology can help with, unless I see your eye. But there are steps to go forward. If you can have iridology done, great. That is one leap forward, and a wonderful diagnostic tool. Like it said, it's safe, it's easy, it's non-invasive, and it's very quick to do. Resources, absolutely. I do talk about iridology, but I also talk about many other topics that will give light to topics that aren't usually written about, and trying to get to, again, the functioning of the body and simply what you can do about it. So I do have the website, CherylMillett.com. On there is a blog, and under the shop, store, whatever you want to call it, buy, is For Your Better Health program. There's a number of things that are there as well. You can feel free to browse. One of my things is I very much, when it comes to detoxifying or cleansing programs or clean diet, those kind of things, you can see how toxicity in the body by being removed will help with the body in healing. And yes, perhaps as a side benefit, losing weight, but many other things happen when the body is balanced and healthy and regenerated. So in some ways we think of cleansing, in some ways we think of certain key essential nutrients, be it the macronutrients, fats. You'll see from the blogs I have that. And there's some programs. So I have done True Nature Retreats, which is bringing to light more of thoughts and how thoughts affect our health. And I'm happy to go through any questions if you want to comment below where you come on and listen to the video. I love questions, just love questions. And comments too. Your feedback is very appreciative. I tried to get through this today in a shorter period of time, so more and more people can learn about it. The idea is, as part of a healthy lifestyle, it is eating well, it is moving well, it is the whole sleep and rest and relaxation and time for yourself, holidays, vacations, whatever it is, chilling, all those things. And then the mind, so thinking well. But that's a whole, that's a whole thing for different people, their beliefs, their everything kind of goes, feelings and emotions that they have. And then with all of that, it's about living well, living well. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording at this time. I want to thank everybody again for watching this, and I will check out the other videos that I have here and keep on learning. Be well, be calm, and we hope to see you again. Bye for now.